going on, everybody? What's happening? Welcome back to the bullshit. Hopefully y'all are doing well out there. I'm doing all right. Just chilling all alone here at the rest area like us truckers do. I will say last week was a little slow, but that's kind of normal right before the holiday season. And I guess you can't have every week being a great week. But before we get into the nonsense, check out these old trucks here. Just think at some point in time, some dude was like, oh yeah, I got me a brand new truck, right? No feeling like getting that brand new truck. Well, I'd say we came a little ways since then. What do y'all think? Y'all see that TA and Petro are suspending their roadside service? They're going to do a review on safety on the whole deal. Well, that got me thinking about it. I bet you eventually roadside repairs are going to not happen anymore, right? Because people are too stupid, dude. They don't move over, right? They don't seem to slow down. They don't do nothing, dude. They just on their phone. You run right in the back of shit and all that nonsense. So it would be super dangerous. And I imagine once the corporations do their whole research thing, they're going to find out, wow, we've had a lot more people getting killed and injured lately, right? So here's what I think is going to happen down the road. I think every time you break down, get a flat tire, so on and so on, you're going to have to get towed to the repair facility, right? Why not? Why should they risk all that? They're not getting paid all that much, right? You're the one that's saving the money by not getting towed, right? No, they're saying they'll still do a repair if you're in a rest area or a parking lot or something like that, just not on the side of the road. So they could like tow you up to the rest area and shit like that. But we'll see. I don't know. We'll see. I'm thinking it's going to go in that direction because that is a damn dangerous job. I actually did it myself back in the day when I was a mechanic. I used to have to do road calls. But back then people had common sense and they had respect, you know. They seen those flashing lights, they slowed down, they moved over, shit like that. Nowadays people are just waiting for their EBT cards to get loaded, you know what I mean? I got stuck at one of those shippers the other day where I had to go and wait in one of them long ass lines. Man, you know, some of these places check in and out, you pay the lumper and all that right on the app. Boy, it'd be kind of nice if we did that on all of them, right? I mean, one thing with waiting in line and the whole chaos that was going on there, but let me tell you, my friends, man, and I'm not even trying to be a little bitch. Truck drivers fucking stink, dude. There's some of them truck drivers in there that just stink bad. Like, I was sitting there going like, I don't know if I can do this. It was getting in my mouth and like, oh, God, take a shower, you nasty fucks. Ugh. But also, you know, I was out in Illinois and I saw this sign right here and I was like, oh yeah, I had to share this with you guys. Because I don't know if you guys knew this or not, but they got a sock puppet museum, my friends. That's right, a sock puppet museum. And it might even be right next door to the National Quilling Museum. So you could hit them both in the same hit, you know. I just wanted to throw it out there because it would be definitely, if you had time, it'd be worth the time to stop there and take a little peeky at that whole deal, right? What else is going on? I don't know, my random shit. Oh, the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration is looking at extending ELP, English Language Proficiency, to the shippers, man, right? Get it? So that way you let Jose load and Jose don't speak no English. And then he goes down the road and he wrecks out, right? And then they look on the bill of lading and they're like, oh, he just loaded at Walmart. Oh, now Walmart's kind of on the hook for it because they loaded him and they knew he didn't speak no English. That, my friends, is kind of crazy. I'll admit that. But that would do a huge dent, right? Because it's pretty hard to catch everybody out here on the road and pull everyone over and all that nonsense. But boy, if you did it at the shippers, it'd be pretty easy, man. It'd be pretty easy. And they're already putting the bounties out, you know, for y'all Karens out there that if you want to start calling ICE on people, I guess they're saying they want us to do that. I don't know what happened to human trafficking, but we're focusing on immigration now. They updated the numbers. They're saying right now 7,000 trucks removed for ELP since that whole deal started in, what, September or something like that? I think it's more than that. The numbers are always a little slow. But the other numbers they updated was, remember originally they said this whole between non-domiciles and ELP was going to take like 200,000 trucks off the road. Well, when they did that clearinghouse change for the drug clearinghouse, they said it was going to take like 80,000 trucks off the road. It took like 200,000 or 180,000 or something trucks off the road. So now that they've had to do more time to do more audits and stuff on the state's databases and everything, they're actually saying it like, oh boy, like we didn't really realize this type of attitude of, they're saying that 600,000 trucks in the next few years are probably going to be coming off the road. And then it really depends on that whole deal, what goes on with California. If they actually, you know, because they pulled the 60 million, now they did another 140 million in funding, and granted, California probably doesn't care, because what are they, like the third largest economy in the world or some number like that, about money. But if they follow through, which they might, because the Trump administration is doing some pretty crazy shit, and go ahead and take California's ability to issue CDLs away. Now, I don't know, does that mean that all CDLs that are from California are no longer valid? I mean, I could see doing, like, not being allowed to issue them anymore. Okay, yeah, that would catch some people. But if you just all of a sudden said that all the CDLs in California are no longer valid, oh, we would have a problem, son. You know what I mean? They wouldn't even want me to go home ever or stop. They wouldn't want them to do that. But we'll see what happens with that whole thing. That could shake some shit up, right? And they're all having their little war, you know, between Newsom and Duffy and Trump and all the stuff that's going on, and the blue and the red and the left and the right and the gay and the not gay and the EBT and the not EBT and the black and the brown and the whites, and it's always the whites' fault. By the way, I've lived a whole life of it always being my fault. But speaking of whites, did y'all see that shit that Alberta, you know, is separating from Ottawa and from Canada and all that shit, which is legit. And the reason they're doing that is because basically Ottawa takes a bunch of their tax money, because Alberta makes the most money revenue in Canada, you know, because they got all the oil fields and shit out there, and natural resources and rare earth minerals and all that. Well, then they send all their huge taxes over to Ottawa, and then Ottawa sends them back more regulations and red tape to be able to do their shit. Kind of like during the Biden administration with the whole oil fields in the United States. We'll shut the pipelines down and all that nonsense. Which, by the way, if you're hard up for a job, look down around Midland and shit right now. Holy crap, they're saying drill, baby, drill. Holy fuck, dude. Look at them goddamn frac sand and crude oil jobs down there, my friends. $140,000, $160,000. And they're looking for drivers like a motherfucker. My friend Max is down there right now. Actually, my friend Adam's down there too. But Alberta now is talking about, literally talking about joining the U.S. And this isn't a YouTube video. I heard this from the Prime Minister lady or whatever. You know, to get lower taxes, lower regulations, and then obviously military protection and all that nonsense. Well, then Saskatchewan, which is right next to Alberta, and British Columbia, are talking about the same shit. Like, we'll see how it goes with Alberta, right? Whether or not that will really happen, who knows? Some people say it's like, oh, back when Texas was talking about breaking off from the United States. Now, you might want to research this, but I'm pretty sure on it. In our Constitution, in the United States, as the colonies were put together, I don't think you can break off. I think in order to break off, it's kind of like the whole Russia and Ukraine deal. You have to actually like go to war with the United States to be able to break off. It's something along that lines. But in the Canadian Constitution, they have it right in there that you are allowed to break off from the Union or whatnot, whatever they call it up there. That would be interesting, wouldn't it? Probably won't happen, but it could. Who knows? We're living in historical times. For me, what I see is like, dude, that'd be some good runs, man. That'd be some miles, dude, if we could go all the way up into British Columbia and Alberta and all that shit without having to cross into another country. You know, it'd be like better than going to California and shit for me out of Michigan. You know, I'd fucking get some trucking miles in there, you know? See some new scenery, right? You know what I'm talking about? Salute to the truck drivers out there that are duct taping the speakers on the fuel pumps, man. I don't know if it's just me because I'm an old ornery man, but y'all know what I'm saying at the Pilot Flying J's, man. You're sitting there feeling, and that fucker's like, blah, 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 buy 2 subs, get 1 free, road trips, blah, 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 and it's fucking loud and noxious. That's what it is. It's annoying. I actually don't even know why we need fucking TVs on gas pumps, man. Like, just take a moment of your time and spend it in your own head while you're waiting for your fuel to pump, you know? So I've noticed, like, nationwide at tons of fuel pumps, people are taking duct tape and putting it over the speakers. And I'm like, well played, drivers. Well played. Good job. And glad to know it's not just me that it annoys the hell out of. So this self-driving truck narrative deal, now that's becoming more of a hot topic. You know, I know it always has been, but it's being talked about a lot more right now because we all know the driver shortage was bullshit. Even the ATA's backtracking on that whole deal now, right? And they're just doing the same thing with the self-driving truck narrative, right? This is how it is, man. They don't want, like, my children or whatever to follow in my footsteps. I actually don't want my children to either, and I'm glad they didn't. But because they would have to pay them and give them good trucks and all that. It's the same shit with the truck driver shortage, man. They wanted to have a shortage so they could justify the laws to bring in the immigrant or the foreigners and shit, and then the foreigners get screwed because they work dirt cheap. Kind of like bringing in the Chinamen to build the railroad back in the day, so on and so on, right? So now they're going to try to keep the younger generation out of the industry by saying that they're not going to have a job in the future because there's going to be self-driving trucks. I mean, even some of the biggest tech companies right now are saying that they're looking at least 25 to 30 years before they had full autonomous trucks. I don't know. It's all about rich greed shit. Speaking of rich greed, how can I go in this mom and pop truck stop, right? Get a nice breakfast, sausage, bacon, hash browns, couple eggs, some toast, all that nonsense for $14. But I go to McDonald's and get a cardboard Big Mac meal with a watered down Coke and some crunchy shit fries for $18, right? I thought it was supposed to be fast, cheap food. Oh, it's because McDonald's is a corporation and they got money mismanagement and greed, you know, because the people at the top want to be rich. They want to hang out in Trump's ballroom or right on Trump's balls, probably, but who knows. I do know that YouTube needs to put in a doggone filter, what do y'all think, where I can click on that filter and say, I don't want to see any goddamn AI videos, man. Like, they're so fucking stupid. It's ridiculous. I want to see, like, real shit, right? But one thing about the AI, you know, they say it's going to take over the world. I understand that, like, right now, people in corporate positions and office positions and stuff like that are losing their job. Mostly just office positions and stuff. And that is going on. And that's unfortunate. I hate to see anyone get laid off and all that stuff. But, dude, and they're saying it's because of AI and all that. Some of it's just because we got overstaffed during COVID, right? It's all just readjusting. The economy, in a free trade economy such as this, it'll right itself. It fixes itself, you know. But here's the deal, man. Wah. Now you gotta go do a factory job or a trades job or a truck driving job or a construction job or some sort of other job. Like the rest of us. Imagine it, right? You don't get to sit in the office and think that you're fucking better than me. Which is hilarious because I'll go into these shippers and receivers and these people probably literally make like 30 or 40,000 a year. I generally make closer to 100 or 90, lately 90, but used to be about 100. And they think they're better than me. I'm like, you're whatever, right? So it's just a change, man. And you're gonna have to go into like manufacturing or something. You know, they actually pay the same, probably better, really. I mean, most of these office jobs and shit, they don't pay all that good. My kids went to trade schools and shit. My daughter went to college, and like my youngest daughter went to college to be a school teacher, came out $100,000 in debt, and they don't even make very much money. You know what I mean? Like, it's just kind of ridiculous, but oh well, I guess you gotta go do a regular job. Sorry about it. What do y'all think about all this cargo theft shit going on? Huh? It's been going on a while, but it ain't like the old days where they just steal shit out of the back of the trailer when you're sleeping, you know? It's pretty complicated shit, and it must go on quite a bit because, like, I see a bunch of different stuff, but for example, like Nike, they'll ship their shit from the factory where the little China kids make it and shit, the sweatshop factory. And they ship one shoe, like the left shoe on one truck, the right shoe on another truck to the distribution center, and then they pair them up to get distributed to the stores. Obviously, so if you rob the truck, you only get one shoe, right? I'm like, man, for a corporation like that, they must be getting a lot of cargo theft. And it's kind of complicated, you know? They're like hacking into the systems. and then getting the pickup numbers, and then they take your DOT numbers and slap them on the truck with a magnetic sign or whatever, and they snatch the load, and then they go in there with the little tracking device finders that you can buy right on Amazon in case your wife's trying to catch you, cheating or something. You can check your car. And then they find the tracking device, and they pay some dude to drive towards the destination in his car, and then the load's going the other way, so it looks like for 3 days it's going in the right direction. By the time you figure it out, that load's long gone, man. Pretty complicated. And then they're doing load shorting. So like, let's say you pick up a load of 22 pallets, right, and you deliver it to, say, Walmart distribution center. So you change the paperwork on the way there, and then you pull off a few pallets. Say you pull off 4 pallets, right? So now when you get to the distribution center, it just shows 18 pallets. So they unload it, they sign your paperwork, 18 pallets. And then it takes a little while for it to go through the whole system. They're saying like 6 months before they catch on to it. By then, how many times have you hit that place? You know what I mean? And you got all those pallets for free. Because isn't that crazy? We're still running on BOL paper. They're gonna have to put in some sort of system where, like, if they ship from point A, it notifies point B that you got 22 pallets coming. You can't just go by that piece of paper, bro. Like, that's just nuts that they're even doing that with all this technology, that they're even doing that, right? And I think that a lot of this cargo theft is directly linked to these shady foreigners, man, because a lot of them, if you think about the countries they come from, they're known for freaking organized crime and crazy shit like that. And I've worked for a couple, and I've seen their shady tactics, and it would not surprise me one bit, I almost forgot, I wanted to speak a minute on this whole AI dispatcher thing. And I'm not talking about, like, if you guys have ever got a call from the broker and they're using AI for that, that's bullshit. I don't like none of that. But the whole AI dispatcher thing, that could actually be beneficial for the dispatcher and for the driver, so on. And I don't think it would, like, take away the dispatcher's job. You're still going to have a dispatcher, because the dispatcher is going to be able to solve problems that AI is not going to be able to solve, It could be a problem for the dispatcher assistants, But as far as truck drivers go, it could be a pretty cool thing, because let's say that you got a load coming out of Michigan going down to Phoenix, Arizona, right? Your truck's leaving on Tuesday. You put that in the system, it knows that you're delivering down there on Thursday, and the system is automatically, like, connected to, like, load boards and stuff, for instance. So instead of the dispatcher sitting there having to search all these loads for Thursday and look through them all and seeing if they pay, you could put in, like, filters of, like, I'm not hauling for less than this amount, and I want to go in this direction, and I want to haul this much weight, and I want reefer, or whatever, right? All your filters. And then it does what computers do, right? I come from the non-computer generation. And it computes it for you. So instead of you going through all of them, it pops up and it's like, oh, look, we got the option of 10 loads coming out of there, and you can pick which one you want, right? So that could streamline that whole thing, which would make it better for you as a driver, right? Because these dispatchers get busy and then they get a little bit, screwy, right? But also, it could take away favoritism, for one. Like, because on the same note, the AI could be watching your logbook, right? So say you got 2 trucks coming out of Michigan, and one's going to be here at such and such time, one's got hours, one don't have hours type deal. It could automatically say, okay, I'm going to take truck 752 and not this other truck, and put him on this load because this driver has more hours and more capability of making that run, right? And even if it's not favoritism, it could just be because the dispatchers are too busy to pay attention to that stuff, because they do get a little bit busy. Maybe they're just incompetent, shit like that. Any type of tool like that would help them out would be nice, right? Because I'll tell you a deal. Chickens, dude. I'd seen them wandering around the parking lot earlier. Where did chickens come from? But anyway, I'll tell you a deal that happened when I was coming out here. So I was sitting on a 34-hour reset, which was actually longer than that. It was like 2.5 days, right? And I was ready to go. Now we had another driver that come down that he had just come off a reset, but he ran that day and got his miles in, and then they shut him down. And we both were coming out of Ohio going to Phoenix, Arizona. His load was ready at 9 p.m. My load was ready the next day at 6 a.m. He didn't even get delivered until 6 p.m. that night or 5 p.m. that night. Yet they gave him the 9 p.m. load. Instead of me, who's been sitting there for 2.5 days, giving me the 9 p.m. load. They made me sit longer, right? And then it totally didn't make any sense because he didn't end up picking up the load until like 3 or 4 in the morning. You know, which was fine because it's, well, let me finish on this because it did end up being late. But I would have picked that fucker up at 9. I would have been more than happy to get going on that deal. He decided to pick it up at 3 or 4 because he had plenty of time. He took off with it at like 3 or 4. I ended up leaving at 7. I passed him, right, and got ahead of him. And I stopped and took a 2-hour nap, and I took a couple showers and all that nonsense. And then still he ended up being late for his delivery, right? So AI could have fixed that whole deal, right? Just let's admit it, it could have fixed that whole deal. It would have gave me the load because I had more available time and I was shut down longer. All right, well, that's all I got for right now. I just wanted to get a video out there of my yammering ass. Kind of really didn't even feel like it, to be honest. So hopefully that wasn't too dumb and too fast, but just wanted to get one out there, and then we'll get rolling, and hopefully I think it's going to pick up next week because we're coming into the holiday season. Everyone says we're not going to have any freight to haul because everyone's poor. I don't think they're that poor. I think it's going to be a little slower than normal, but I don't think it's gloom and doom because I looked on Indeed the other day, and as you all know, I watch that all the time to gauge what's going on, and I was quite shocked. Not necessarily by the amount of jobs, a lot better than what I've been seeing in a while, but the money. Like, for my area, where I'm at, like, because I just watch the same companies in my area is what I do, right? Dude, 70 cents a mile plus on, like, a majority of those jobs. And then I started seeing some, like, $5,000 sign-on bonuses and shit coming back. And I'm like, what's going on with that? Because we are kind of slow at the moment. Most of the drivers I'm talking to, like, over the last at least couple of weeks here, we've been kind of sitting around a little bit, which is kind of a normal no for, right before the holiday season rush deal and all that, but seasonality. But I was like, what's going on? What's like I always say, man, these rich people and the corporations and shit, they look way ahead, man. That's how they're always ahead of the curve, the successful ones. I don't know what they're looking at, but it probably has something to do with this whole crackdown on drivers and stuff. So they might be thinking that maybe they want to lock some drivers down now before there becomes a battle for drivers. Because there's going to be. You know what I mean? I mean, a lot of these dudes, you can go right on their YouTube channels. You got to have it snap or whatever that deal is, convert it over to English because they're like Russian and Eastern European and shit. They're leaving. You know what I mean? Like, some of them got legit paperwork for a few more years yet, but they don't want to get caught up in the mix and get set in some ICE detention facility and have to sit there and wait for a year or whatever, right? So they're just like, fuck it, I'm going home. And I don't know what y'all think, man, but the parking situation out here, I go to these same truck stops all the time, and I'd be like coming in, man, and there's like lots of parking and shit. I don't know. I know negativity does a lot better on YouTube, and I'd have a lot bigger channel if I was more negative. I think I'm plenty negative, maybe a little too much negative. I wish I could find more positive stuff to talk about, but life is life, and it kind of sucks a little bit if I'm being honest. But I think it's going to be better, dude. I think come April, May, maybe June of next year, which I know is a little ways away. I get it. We got to get through winter and shit. But fuck, we've been in this deal for like 3 years. We can make it. I think it's going to just, next year is just going to be gangbusters for being a trucker, dude. You're going to be like, I want this, I want that, I want this, I want that. And no more of this fucking applying for a job and then they get back to you a week later to tell you some stupid ass excuse that they didn't hire you. the insurance company says you've had too many jobs. I was watching a thing on Freightways where they brought in insurance companies, and they say that's a myth. Insurance companies don't give a shit how many jobs you have. They give a shit how long you've been driving the truck and whether or not you had any accidents. That's just some little faggot recruiter or whatever that doesn't have enough balls to just tell you that they're not hiring you. You know, it'll get back to the fact that they'll hire everybody again, like it always is. You know, as long as you can breathe and show up to work, you're in. But anyway, until then, we'll just hang out and wait. As always, I appreciate y'all.
Namah Shivaya. Shiv Shankaraya Shuddha